You're not supposed to forget a whole person, especially not someone who once shared your room, your childhood, and the quiet parts of your life that no one else ever sees. You're not supposed to wake up one day and realize that there is a gap in your past, a space where someone used to exist, and now there's nothing there at all. The worst part isn't just the absence itself. It's the feeling that the absence is wrong, like something has been carefully removed and everything around it has been adjusted to make sure you wouldn't notice. But something inside you still does, something small and persistent that refuses to settle, like a memory trying to surface but never quite reaching the top. It started on an afternoon that felt completely ordinary at the time. I was cleaning my room, not seriously, just moving things around to distract myself from a strange, restless feeling I couldn't explain. It was the kind of restlessness that doesn't come from boredom, but from something deeper, something unsettled. I pulled open an old drawer near my desk, one I hadn't touched in years. It resisted at first, as if it had sealed itself shut over time, then slid open with a dry scraping sound that felt louder than it should have in the quiet room. Inside was a cluttered mess of old notebooks filled with half-written thoughts, tangled earphones, receipts from places I barely remembered, and small objects that had clearly outlived their purpose but somehow never got thrown away. I began pulling things out one by one, not really looking at them, just clearing space without thinking. That's when my fingers brushed against something smoother than everything else. I paused and reached deeper into the drawer, pulling out a photograph. At first glance, it didn't seem important. It looked like every other old photo, slightly bent, edges worn down, the surface faintly scratched. I almost tossed it aside without properly looking at it, but something about it made me hesitate. It felt heavier than it should have, not in my hand, but somewhere else, like it carried something I couldn't yet understand. I looked down at it more carefully, and that's when I noticed what was wrong. In the photograph, I was sitting on the floor, cross-legged, smiling in that careless, open way children do when they don't know they're being watched. The room around me looked familiar, like my room as it used to be, slightly messy, filled with small, meaningless things that once felt important. The light from the window cast a soft glow across everything, making the scene feel calm and normal. But I wasn't alone. There was another girl sitting right beside me, close enough that our shoulders were touching, her arm resting casually around mine as if it had always been there. She looked almost exactly like me. Same dark hair, same skin tone, same slightly awkward smile that didn't quite settle properly on her face. Not identical, but close enough that it didn't feel like coincidence. At first, I thought she might be a cousin or a childhood friend I had simply forgotten. But the longer I looked at her, the less that explanation made sense. There was something about the way she leaned into me, the way she occupied that space so naturally, that felt permanent. Not like someone visiting, not like someone passing through, but like someone who belonged there just as much as I did. I stared at her face for a long time, waiting for something to come back, a name, a memory, even a vague feeling, anything that would connect her to me. But there was nothing. Just a strange emptiness, like my mind was deliberately avoiding something it didn't want to process. That feeling made my chest tighten slightly, a quiet discomfort that didn't have a clear reason but refused to go away. Slowly, I turned the photograph over. On the back, written in faded ink, were the words, "Me and Rhea, summer 2009. The handwriting was mine. I recognized it instantly. It was uneven and slightly shaky, the way I used to write when I was younger. Seeing my own handwriting made something inside me shift in a way I couldn't fully explain. It wasn't just the name that bothered me. It was the certainty that I had written it, that at some point, I had known exactly who she was. Rhea. I said the name quietly under my breath, testing how it felt. It didn't feel unfamiliar. That was what made it worse. It felt like something I should know, something that belonged somewhere in my memory, but wasn't there anymore. "I don't know anyone named Rhea," I whispered, but even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. I took the photograph downstairs, holding it carefully as if it might change if I wasn't paying attention. My mother was in the kitchen, cutting vegetables with slow, steady movements, completely absorbed in her routine. The normalcy of the scene felt strange compared to the unease building inside me. I stood there for a moment, watching her, trying to figure out how to ask a question that already felt wrong. "Mom," I said finally, keeping my voice as steady as I could. "Who's Ria?" She glanced at the photograph, just for a second. But in that second, something shifted in her expression. It was subtle, almost invisible, but I saw it clearly. A flicker of recognition, not confusion, not curiosity. Recognition, and then it disappeared so quickly that if I hadn't been looking for it, I might have missed it entirely. "That's just you," she said, sliding the photo back toward me without really looking at it again. "Old photos can look strange." "There are two of us," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Look properly." "I said it's just you," she replied, her tone sharper now. "Maybe it's a reflection or something. Don't overthink it." It wasn't a reflection. I knew that immediately. But more than that, I knew she was lying. Not openly, not in a way that could be easily confronted, but deliberately, carefully, like she had done this before. Like this wasn't the first time the question had come up. I didn't push further. Something in her voice made it clear that it wouldn't lead anywhere. But the unease stayed with me, heavier now, more real, like something had been confirmed without being said out loud. That night, I couldn't sleep. The photograph sat on my bedside table, face down at first, like I could ignore it if I didn't look at it. But sometime after midnight, I woke up suddenly, without knowing why. The room felt different. Not louder, not darker, just aware in a way that made the silence feel unnatural. My eyes drifted toward the photograph without me consciously deciding to look at it. I reached out and turned it over. At first, everything looked the same. But the longer I stared, the more something felt wrong. Ria's smile didn't look natural anymore. It looked tighter, like it had been forced into place, and her eyes weren't looking at the camera anymore. They were angled slightly to the side, just enough that it felt like she was looking at me. A slow, cold feeling spread through my chest, settling into something heavy and difficult to ignore. The next day, I started searching for answers. I went through old albums, storage boxes, anything that might explain who she was. At first, everything looked normal. Pictures of birthdays, school events, random moments frozen in time. Just me, growing up. Just me, alone. But once I started looking closely, things began to fall apart in small, unsettling ways. In one photo, there was a faint shape near a doorway that looked almost like a person. In another, there was a shadow beside me that didn't match the direction of the light. It stretched too far, too thin, like it belonged to someone standing just outside the frame. I started noticing gaps in my memory, moments that felt incomplete, times where I remembered laughing but couldn't remember why, memories that felt like they should include someone else, but didn't. The more I thought about it, the stronger that feeling became, like something had been removed not just from the photos but from my mind as well. That feeling followed me back to my room. I stood in the doorway for a long time, just looking at it. It had always been my room. That's what I believed. But now, something about it felt wrong. The space didn't feel natural anymore. It felt adjusted, like something had been removed and everything else had shifted to compensate. I moved my bed slightly, just a few inches. Beneath it, faint scratches marked the floor, parallel lines worn deep into the wood over time, not random, repeated. The spacing didn't match one bed, it matched two. That realization didn't hit all at once. It settled slowly, heavy and unavoidable, like something I had always known but never allowed myself to see. That night, I asked my mother again. But this time I didn't try to soften the question. I asked her directly if there had ever been another child in the house, another daughter. She didn't answer immediately. She just looked at me for a long time, her expression unreadable. Then she said quietly, "Some things are better left forgotten." And that was enough. That was more than enough, After that, things started changing in ways I couldn't ignore anymore. My door, which I always closed before sleeping, would be slightly open when I woke up. Objects on my desk would move just enough to make me question whether I had touched them. At night, I started hearing footsteps, soft and careful, like someone moving slowly, deliberately, trying not to be noticed. The sound always came from the same place, the empty space beside my bed. I started recording audio while I slept, just to prove to myself that I wasn't imagining it. For a few nights, there was nothing unusual, just silence, broken by small movements. But one night, I heard something else. A voice, faint, close, almost too quiet to catch. "You promised." I replayed it over and over again, my hands shaking slightly each time. I didn't remember making any promises, but something inside me reacted like I had, like the words belonged to a memory I didn't want to face. The dreams started after that. They weren't chaotic or confusing like normal dreams. They were clear, structured, almost too real. In them, my room looked different. There were 2 beds, 2 desks, 2 lives existing side by side. And I wasn't alone. She was always there. Rhea, watching me, waiting. "Why did you forget me?" she asked. "I didn't mean to," I said, even though the words felt empty. "That's not the same thing," she replied. "Forgetting isn't the same as losing." The memories came back slowly after that, not as a single realization, but as fragments that didn't make sense on their own. A second bed. Shared secrets whispered in the dark, arguments over small things, a locked door, raised voices, something breaking, and then silence. A silence that stretched too long, too deep, until it became something permanent. There had been an accident. That was the word my mind settled on, even though it felt incomplete. Something had happened. Something that ended with her gone and me still here. My parents had erased her, not just from the house, but from everything. Photos changed, belongings removed, conversations avoided, and eventually, my mind followed. It buried her. Until now. The night it finally happened, I wasn't asleep. I was sitting on my bed, the photograph in my hands, waiting without fully understanding what I was waiting for. The room was completely still, the air heavy with something I couldn't name. The door opened slowly. No sound, no warning. And then she stepped inside. She looked clearer now, more solid, less like a memory and more like something real. "Do you remember?" she asked. I nodded. "Good," she said softly. "I didn't want you to forget again." She stepped closer. "You left me." "I didn't mean to," I whispered. "You knew," she replied. She reached out. "You don't have to be alone anymore." Her fingers touched my arm, cold. The room shifted. For a moment I saw it clearly. 2 beds, 2 sisters, 2 lives that were never meant to be separated. Then everything went dark. The next morning, everything looked normal again. 1 bed, 1 desk, 1 life. My mother moved through the house like nothing had changed, but when she saw the photograph on my bedside table, she froze. There were 2 girls in it now, both of them smiling, and this time, neither of them looked like they were trying to leave. If this felt real, that's because it was almost real. I'll see you in the next memory.